Welcome to the Bush Creek East information briefing that was recorded at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, August 30th, 2023. We are joining you from the traditional unceded territories of the Secwepemc, Syilx, Okanagan, Sinex, and Ktunaxa nations. I'm Tim Conrad, Information Officer with the CSRD Emergency Operations Center, and joining me today is Derek Sutherland, the EOC Director and Protective Services Team Leader with the CSRD, along with Mike McCulley, with the Information Officer with BC Wildfire Service. A quick update of things going on in the region. We do have a cooling trend that is happening over the next couple of days. We're really happy about that, and we hope that you will be too. That includes some rain, so good conditions for our firefighters. That said, the area still has active evacuation orders and alerts, so residents should remain on alert and be prepared to leave the area immediately if required. So be sure to check the CSRD website and newsflash sections for more information and updates as to come. I will now turn things over to Mike McCulley, Information Officer with the BC Wildfire Service, although I'm hearing that he is not online yet, so I'm just checking in. No, there he's coming in now. So Mike, just about to introduce you. If you're good to go, we'll get you going on your update on the wildfire operations and outlook.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll just start with a bit of a general overview, and then I'll go back to sharing my screen here. Just bear with me for 1 second while I get organized. And I do apologize for being chronically late to everybody. Okay, thank you for the patience. So I'll talk first, obviously, about the weather. You know, we had a day yesterday where we were expecting some winds. We knew we'd been through a warm drying trend. We did our prep work and we did our engagement ahead of time to ensure everybody knew what we were thinking and looking at. And graciously yesterday, we were spared from any significant wind on the Bush Creek East wildfire. That was good news for us. The temperatures cooled down through the evening and the humidities have started to climb a little bit already. So that was the story yesterday. Now, having said that, this morning, we certainly did see wind and we knew that it would just be delayed. That did happen. We did have winds this morning, which caused some growth in the Turtle Valley area, into the Sorrento area, and caused, you know, some of our other flanks to be a little more active than normal, but not major growth on the other portions. The Turtle Valley and Sorrento portion is for sure the biggest area of concern for us. Going forward, we do expect the winds to, you know, be a little bit gusty through the day today. Temperatures should continue to cool and dry. I'm not exactly sure how much precip we've had on the fire. I know we've got sun, but nothing of big consequence yet, or a big significance, I suppose. For us, we're still, you know, somewhat optimistic that we may see a little more on some portions of the fire, but for now, there's, as we say, no rain is rain until it's in the gauge, and we just don't have a lot of that yet. I am in Salmon Arm right now. The winds are a little bit gusty, pretty light. So hopefully we will see that to continue, see the temperatures continue to drop through today and the humidities rise. What's that caused this is just not a big increase in fire behavior and no real significant growth on our fire, again, save and except the area around Turtle Valley and Sorrento. So I will now share my screen. Tim, please let me know when you can see that.
Yeah, you're coming up on your map.
Okay.
It's good.
I thought before I zoomed right into the fires that we're talking about today, I just wanted to, you know, there's our map. This is kind of what we're dealing with provincially at this time. So still a really significant fire season for all the citizens of British Columbia. Bush Creek East wildfire still remains around 43,000 hectares. You know, the size goes up and down a little bit each day, and I've been talking about the way the mapping works. There's still a human that is delineating this perimeter. The perimeter is very broken. Sorry, not broken, but very jagged, lots of pockets, lots of fingers. It's a really tricky fire to get really precise handle on the size. So around 43,000 hectares, not a lot of change to that. And I will start by talking about, the more challenging area of the day, which is down on the southwest and southeast flanks of this fire in the Turtle Valley area. So last night we saw, some significant fire behavior on the top of the hill above Turtle Valley. There's a ridge up here that is sort of open, and you can almost see through the yellow here, a bit of open slash in this area. And what that causes is that, the sun and the wind can get in and drive the fuels up. So when the fire hits it, it likes it, and then it sort of picks up a little bit. And that's what we saw last night. Once the fire moves back into a more closed fuel type, certainly the fire activity would dwindle a little bit, and it will start to creep a little bit around in there again. We have had our structural protection task forces patrolling in this area. They'll continue to do that. We have had them on day and night through this sort of weather pattern that we've had, but that is why there was a significant view of fire for those folks in that area yesterday, is the fuel type on the top. The other piece is the inversion that we've been seeing. So inversion means that cooler air is trapped lower in the valley and the warmer air is high up on the ridge tops. So early in the day yesterday and through today probably as well, although there's a little less inversion today, the warm, driest part of the fire were on these tops of these hills, and that's why you'll often see that popping a little bit more early in the day in areas of the fire. So those sort of combination of effects caused that fire to be quite visible yesterday. Last night, we know that we had some, as expected, we had fire kind of continue to go down the hill in the Sorrento area, and it moved down. This perimeter is not accurate. It's down a little further than what you see on the screen, probably down into where my hand is, if you can see on the cursor. It's not a large front or a big head of flames coming. If you have been looking at it, this fire is very visible from the highway and other places. It's a spotty front. The fire is kind of moving down there. Finding the fuel lights and creeping around in there and coming down the hill. So what we did was last night, our ground crews that we had on night shift, which we did in preparation for this type of event, we're working along a guard line here, and the fire came down quite close to the guard. They worked this line to hold the fire. They did that with the support of the local fire department. They were working side by side with them, and CP Rail was also out along their line, working on the spot as well. So we feel confident that we're going to hold that fire there. We did make some recommendation to move some of this area to order today, just as a precaution. Clearly the fire is moving a little closer, and it's often due to the downdraft winds that come through some of these gullies. Again, fire moved downhill a bit last night, was fairly active this morning, but we did have crews there through the night in anticipation of that. We ramped the crew contingent up today. We added some more BC Wildfire Service Type 1 unit crew resources to the fire, and we will be bucketing on that fire actively today. We have had 2 heavy helicopters bucketing this flank for the good part of a week, just in an effort to hold this fire and cool it, and they will now just shift their priority and bucket a little closer to the fire, closer to the hot spots on the front of the head. One thing to note is that when helicopters are bucketing like that, our ground crews have to be out of the way. There are a lot of hazards that occur when you're putting water on trees. They knock trees over, especially trees that have had their roots compromised by wildfire, and they also knock the limbs off of trees. So when you see aircraft bucketing, it's a bit of a coordinated effort. It's very strategically done. They're working in conjunction with their ground crews. They're talking all the time by radio and communicating to ensure that it's safe and that their tactics and objectives are useful and successful for the spot and the place, and done in the most safe manner. So that's sort of the story in the Sorrento area. And then I wanted to move up into the Celesta Magna Bay portion of the fire. So our crews have been working in this area for a while, building guard line with machines, and they tied into an area called Onyx Creek, which is where they anchored in. We always like to anchor into a nice, safe place to start. We don't like to build guard line that's not tied into anything and has no escape route and no, safe anchor points. So we anchored in, and we've been working there for quite a while, kind of moving up to the north and we call it moving around the horn, coming around the top of this fire. And we've now joined up with a contingent of community firefighters that have been working extremely hard in there for a very long time. working with ground crews and equipment. Our crews are now connected with them. And in fact, those firefighters are hopefully getting a little bit of rest today. We're happy to provide some respite to them. We've been glad to work with them. Certainly, they provide us a lot of knowledge on what the winds do in these areas and how they move down some of these canyons and sort of what the land is like to work on. Today, our crews will be in there continuing that work, tying into the work that the locals have done. And then, you know, starting hopefully tomorrow, that local contingent will come back online and we'll continue to work side by side with them as we work hard to protect these communities north of Magna Bay and in the you know, sort of northwest of the Celeste area. So we're feeling confident there. We don't have a lot of big growth in that area. Again, generally across the fire, we've seen some increase in activity with just the little bit of wind we've had and the warmer, drier conditions, but no big heads of fire taking large runs at any community at any time right now. I think I'll just wrap up by talking again about an area I've spoken about several times, which is the Lee Creek Shadow. So right down in here, as I've been mentioning, our crews have worked these two shoulders of the line below this area where a while ago our ignition occurred, and that work is now almost complete. We still have a contingent of crews working in there, but we have been able to take some of them and move them over into the Magna Bay area to support this effort. We also have some Mexican firefighters tagged in with our BC Wildfire Service crews along this flank. So again, we've moved some crews from Lee Creek over to the Magna. We also have some Mexican firefighters working on the western bulge, I guess we'll call it, over here in the Locum Bear area. They continue to work in here to, you know, put out hotspots and do what they can. We've had a lot of good infrared scanning done through a lot of these areas in a week or so, which helps us to identify hotspots, you know, sort of within reasonable range of the perimeter. We don't go chasing fire through the entire area. Obviously, that's not something that's impactful or sustainable. We do try to firm up the flanks of these fires, and we use infrared scanning to help us to do that. Once the scan data comes in, our crews can find the hot spots a little more effectively and safely, and they can go get them and put them out. Scanning has been done also up through the Adams Lake area. So maybe for today, Tim, I will leave it at that and push it back over to you for now.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike. Mike, just a curious question. How much water is on board a typical helicopter for wildfire?
That's a really hard question to answer, Tim. They range in size from hundreds of gallons to thousands of gallons. We have a really broad range of fleets. We'll use buckets on our smallest helicopters and also on our biggest helicopters. Again, they go from hundreds of liters or gallons to literally thousands of liters or gallons. But it's heavy. You know, if you're thinking about the big bucket ships that are flying across in the Sorrento area, that would be up in the thousands and thousands of liters range. And so that is not something you want to get hit with. And it's certainly something that can knock over multiple trees with just one bucket. So apologies for not spitting specific numbers at you, but each aircraft is different, and it will often depend on where they're at in their fuel cycle as well. When a helicopter starts a cycle, it's full of fuel. Helicopters are really built to adjust to the weight and the payload they have. So at the start of a bucketing cycle, they may take slightly less water because they're quite heavy with fuel. But as they move through their fuel cycle and they're towards the back end, they may take a bigger dip into the lake and they can take a little more water. So it varies quite a lot, again, depending on the fuel cycle, type of machine, the wind, temperature can change the lift effect of a helicopter, so that on the hotter days and the air is a little bit thinner, a helicopter doesn't quite get the same lift as it does on a cool, dense day. So all of these things play into factor when you're asking how much water does a helicopter carry. I hope that kind of answered the question, Tim.
Yeah, it does, Mike. I'm just trying to impress upon people the danger that's there for being a human underneath that. It's a lot of water. Imagine many bathtubs full of water coming down on top of you. And when you're talking the large tankers coming in and dropping, they're coming in at speed too on top of that. So it's important that people stay out of the area, stay out of these wildfire areas when you're working. So something that I know BC Wildfire repeats quite a bit. So now we'll invite questions from the media. Marcella, I know you've had some audio issues, so we'll kind of put you in third place as we go through questions here. So I'm just checking to see if there's anybody else that has questions for Mike. Barbara Fairclough, I see you're up, so go ahead.
Thank you. It's Barbara from the South Shuswap Scoop. And Mike, I'm just interested to know what's involved with the decision making for the types of aircraft that are used with the fire. I know you're relying quite a bit on helicopters. I get a lot of people asking about use of larger fixed wing aircraft in using in fire suppression, and we certainly have the lake mass to probably accommodate these. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, of course I can. And I'm actually really glad you've asked that question, Barbara. We've had it a few times today, so I'm happy to speak to it. Fair warning, I'm not a short-winded guy to start with, and this is not a short answer. So when we're deciding whether or not to use, so I'll break it up. We have helicopter bucket ships that we use for both initial attack and sustained attack. And we do the same with our air tankers. Air tankers are aircraft that land at an airport, are reloaded with retardant, fly back over a fire, and apply that to a section of fire ahead of the fire front to cool it and slow it down for ground crews to get in. I think the thing that people need to understand the most is aircraft do not put out wildfires. Aircraft are used to cool and slow a fire, but they don't put out a fire. Only our ground crews and our equipment can do that. So that's what an air tanker does. The other ones that I think maybe you're asking about more specifically would be skimmers or scoopers. In British Columbia, we use something called an A802 air tractor. They're the ones that people will be very familiar with. They're small white and red planes in this case. They fly around in groups of 4 to 6. They skim water off of a lake, apply it to a fire, and they do that very quickly, and they run in cycles. They may also be injecting foam into the water while it's in the plane just to provide a little more surface area and a little more wetness to the ground. The other type we use would be a scooper. We affectionately call them big ducks in our industry. Those are the much larger aircraft that you see scooping water as compared to the small skimmers that we use. Similar story though, they're skimming and scooping out of the lake. So I think those are the ones you're asking about. The reasons why we do and don't use those are very dependent on the conditions of the day. If we have really smoky conditions and visibility is poor, we just aren't able to run the fixed wing aircraft. A helicopter can move a little more safely through smoky conditions. It doesn't need forward motion to gain lift, whereas a fixed wing aircraft has to have forward motion to gain lift. An airplane always has to move forward. It's trickier to turn around. They have to be able to see where they're going. So one of the reasons is visibility from a safety perspective, and that's only one of the reasons. And I just want to remind everybody that in all of those aircraft are firefighters. There's people in there, just like on the ground. Those are crews that we work with, part of our team, part of our firefighting mission. When we are working in steep and windy terrain, it is also sometimes very tricky to get those aircraft into these areas to apply retardant, surfactant, or water, surfactant being foam, onto the land to slow it and cool it. That's one of the reasons why we use the smaller skimmers in BC. They're a little more efficient in the tight ground, but even they can't go everywhere. So those are some of the constraints to using those types of aircraft. But the other one is there has to be some type of objective that's achievable and meaningful. We don't just throw water on fire again, that doesn't put a fire out. We still have to put ground troops down in there to dig in deep and get control of the fire. They can't work underneath those aircraft. So it's always a balancing act. Do we need to cool the fire down, or are we trying to actually let the fuels dry out a little bit? Do we have a planned ignition that we need to undertake to firm up a control line? Sometimes when we're putting water on a forest, holding a fire in a spot that isn't helpful. We like to have fire come to our control lines on our terms, and we'll often be ready to have that happen. So cooling down a fire with water retardant or surfactant is a very strategic decision. We will use skimmers on fires that are older. I know yesterday we ran skimmers on the Ross Moore Lake wildfire as an example. We had a little flank of that fire that was quite active. We were able to cool it down and allow us to get in and do some good work in there. So these are some of the reasons, Barbara. It's a bit of a a complex answer, but there's always lots of different reasons why we don't run those aircraft. They are available for us if we need them, as long as there's not other fires that are using them. But if there's no achievable objective, there's nothing they can tie into, no reason to put them out there, and it's not safe, which is generally the reason right now because of smoke. That's why you won't see them. I hope that answered, Barbara. That's quite a long story.
Yeah, no, it's a good story, and you've explained quite a bit. I appreciate that very much, Mike. Thanks.
Okay. If you need any follow-up, please let me know.
Thank you.
And thanks a lot for that question, Barbara. I know Mike loves to give great detail on those types of answers. And he mentioned one thing, I'll just add a little piece. I'm a former structural firefighter, and foam actually, as he mentioned, stretches out water, and it creates a layer that goes around things much better. So you can actually just play with that when you're washing your hands at the sink. You can see that dripping down will change compared to regular water. So it's quite an effective tool at times. Next up, we have Tracy with the North Shuswap Kicker.
Oh, hi again. I was just wondering if I'm not sure who would answer this, if it would be Mike or CSRD, but I was just wanting to find out a little bit more about the evacuation order that went out today. I did hear from member of the community in the area that was in the evacuation order area, and they mentioned that they did not receive an alert and nobody knocked on their door. I don't know if they left the area before the door knocking took place, and also I didn't get the alert on my phone either. So I'm just wondering, for those people who may not be on social media, that may be a concern if the alert isn't coming up on their app on their phone. Could somebody address that?
Tracy, I'm gonna ask Derek to speak to that, but I am still hoping to connect with you later. My apologies, I haven't reached out yet today.
No problem.
Hey, Tracy. Yeah, I can explain that. So the order that was recommended from BC Wildfire was only included about 14 homes. The threat at the moment is low, but the fire is active and was active last night. The residents who were directly affected by that fire have already been evacuated. And we've sent out search and rescue to speak to the others that are affected directly here over the lunch hour. So we chose not to send out an alertable because it only affected 14 residents, and we were going directly to their door to knock on it and let those residents know.
Okay, I guess then probably the reason why they didn't hear the knock is maybe they left sooner than the door knocking. That's
right. They probably got word over our socials, and we sent out search and rescue just to make sure that everybody had got the message. Because it was such a small group, we could do that more personal notification.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just one moment. Are you good, Tracy, with that?
Yes, that's good. Thank you very much.
Okay. And Barbara, if I could get you to mute your line, please, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. Not sure if there's any more questions up. I'm just checking. Marcella, if you'd like to go, I'm not sure if you have any questions right at this time.
I do, and I've unmuted myself. So am I echoing? Am I angering anybody with my echoing voice?
You're
working
great.
Okay?
You're great.
Okay, thank you. Let me shout out first to Brad to thank him very much for helping me with my tech issues and being able to ask my questions. So the main thing I wanted to ask about was the water supply issue overnight, because I spoke with some residents of Sorrento that were saying that because of the shortage of water, there were issues and that there might have been a pump issue. So if maybe somebody can explain what happened there.
Yeah, I can help you with that. So during the firefighting efforts, the reservoir got drained down. There is a communication system with the pumps, and that communication failed due to the tower in the North Shuswap that it runs off of being damaged by the earlier fire. And but those pumps have been re-engaged, and the reservoir is filled again. Firefighters had to adapt to the situation, but they're pretty resilient and they're used to dealing with that, so they were able to draw out of another water source. So that's what happened there. Everything is back up to normal, and communications is restored to those pumps.
Wonderful. And the other follow-up question I had was regarding reports yesterday that Chase RCMP recovered some of the firefighting equipment that had been stolen earlier on. Is anyone available to talk about that? Because we've tried to get somebody from Chase RCMP to confirm those details and no one's called us back.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that. It would be wonderful if they did, but maybe Mike has heard something.
I haven't really heard anything that I would confirm, but I will say that if that is true, that's simply great news. Wildfire fighting equipment is an extreme shortage, across not only Canada, but the world, to be honest. So I hope that's just a chance for people to respect and understand why it's so important to leave that gear alone. If you see it, just because it's not running doesn't mean it's not set up to run when the time is right. We were talking about a water supply issue earlier. These are exactly why we don't just turn the pump on and let it run all summer. We try to be strategic. Water is in short demand everywhere. And so when you see that gear out there and it's not running, it doesn't mean we're not ready to use it. It's set up in case fire comes. We can turn it on and make a humidity bubble and cool things down. So there's my little opportunity to, teach a little bit about the why, but I am not aware of that and I can't confirm it. I would say I sure hope it's true.
So do I.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. And Brad was smiling in the background. I just wanted to pass that along to you. Any other questions before we move along to Derek's update? Barbara, you've got your hand up again.
Yes, thank you. It's great to have the update on the water. There's lots going on with it. And is there any other changes or concern regarding availability of natural gas and hydro and those other utilities?
Yeah, we get briefed by hydro. Hi, Barb. We get briefed by hydro every morning, and their task is still massive. But they're bringing in crews from all over the place, still arriving, and so they're going great guns on that. But the number of power poles is in the hundreds that they have to replace. So it's going to take a little bit of time.
Thank you.
Excellent. And North Shuswap Kicker, do you have another question there, Tracy?
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure if I should have waited until after Derek gave his briefing or if I should ask it now.
You guys are eliminating my briefing here.
Sorry. I do have one question. It is relating to the locals in the North Shuswap here who have been working alongside with some of the BC Wildfire crew. The few people that got their S100 tickets. I did speak to a couple yesterday that were wanting me to ask if there's another way that they would be able to get compensated for gas and food. They did say they were getting water, but they weren't offered lunch or dinner, and they did say that they would be getting compensation on their check from BC Wildfire when they get paid later. But at the moment, for them to get to and from, if they need gas in their truck now, and I know that one of them had to borrow gas from a neighbor, and even if they did get money, for example, to get gas, there's no gas stations for them to be able to go to because the Lee Creek gas station has been burnt, the Scotch Creek one is closed, and the co-op gas station, you need a card and not everybody has a card. So that's an issue that I was wondering if you could address.
I'll address the sort of compensation issue. What I can't speak to is the availability piece, but the compensation issue, they're right. When we statutory hire firefighters or statutory staff of any kind, they submit a daily time diary. At the end of the day, they submit their kilometers and they get compensated according to our, negotiated agreements and rates. And that gets paid out just like for me on payday when my paycheck gets processed. For them, it's when their time diary gets processed, no differently. Not always convenient, just like it isn't in my life or anybody else's, but that's sort of the way the compensation works. We do not normally provide food or meals for our crews that are within their home area. And so some of these constraints are things that we're just held to. There's not a lot of, these are the procurement regulations of government, I suppose. So that's how the compensation piece works. As far as the availability, there's not really much I can speak to that. Maybe the regional district can talk to that or maybe not.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. As far as feeding is concerned, I have had discussions with some of Mike's colleagues about feeding some of the people that the community firefighters that are working on BC Wildfire's behalf. So if they need to be integrated into our systems, they can be. I just need to know about it. And as far as fuel is concerned, I'm just not sure how to answer that. And yeah, I just don't have an answer. Sorry, Tracy.
Okay, well, thank you for your efforts and thank you for what you guys are doing.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions, so back over to Derek Sutherland, our Emergency Operations Center Director, with the latest update from CSRD.
Sure. Thanks, Tim. So there was an active firefighter, like Mike was active wildfire, like Mike was saying last night, that was addressed by Shuswap Fire Department out in Sorrento and BC Wildfire. This was south of the tracks on the west end of Sorrento, the very west end of Sorrento. It was a very active firefight, very active scene, and firefighters managed to save a structure out there. So many thanks to the Shuswap Fire Department and the BC Wildfire crews that were out there to help them save that home. The evacuation last night, as I said, was tactical for those homes that were directly affected, and we formalized that this morning. And like I said, the search and rescue will be going around and knocking on doors to give that direct contact to those residents. The main danger is past. We have a little bit of time to get that out, so they're out there now doing that work. The information about the location of waste garbage bins is on the CSRD website. We'll have more details coming regarding fridge and freezer disposal. For now, we're not accepting fridges and freezers for disposal. However, we are making a plan and that will be available soon. We've started to reach out to property owners, as we mentioned on the last few updates, to discuss losses. If you've not heard from us yet, make sure you've reached out to us through the EOC call center at 250-833-3350. That's if you want to kind of move to the head of the line. We're just making our way through the list. If you have particular questions, we're happy to talk to you first. And then an update on what I mentioned yesterday. The ESS will be closing down, the reception center in Salmon Arm will be closing down tomorrow at noon to facilitate a move over to the Fairfield Inn and Suites in Salmon Arm. And they'll be reopened again on Friday morning at 9 a.m. They'll be operating from 9 till 4. The phone number for the reception center is 250-833-3360. 833-3360. And that's it. Nice to know.
Thanks a lot, Derek. Just to build on Derek's comments on the fire activity last night, I know residents in Sorrento and Blind Bay were certainly concerned. It's always a concern when you see fire burning at night on a hill over top of you. It's quite the glow to see. Firefighters did feel very comfortable with the status of it this morning, and the weather is very much in their favor today. You certainly notice us a little bit happier today because the weather forecast that we've received is one of the best that we've seen in quite a while. So we're pleased with that. We'll keep hoping for more rain. That's the big thing that we would like to see. But it's really wonderful to see that. At the same time, we're marked with the reality that we're making phone calls to people that have lost their homes and their cottages and so on. So it's a moment that we are bouncing between, that we do have good news, but we also have terrible news that we are sharing. We do ask that everyone in that Sorrento area stay away, and anywhere in the region where wildfire fighters and firefighters are working, stay away from the area, please. The firefighters need room to work, to bring equipment in and out of the area. There's a lot of shuttling of water. I heard about that from our fire crews yesterday, just how far they're having to shuttle water in some cases due to some of the reservoir issues. I really, a lot of work in going on with firefighters, so please give them lots of room. yeah, there you'll still see some active hotspots. So again, it's still a very active situation, but we're hoping with this weather, it will continue to turn. Another reminder, and I will be reminding everyone every day, or we will, whoever's sitting in this chair will be saying every day, to sign up for Alertable, to be notified when conditions change in the region. This is you must subscribe to get those notifications. Make sure you have it set to your home community or where you work. It's best not to, some people will select the entire area, or they'll select the wrong area. So make sure that just check in your Alertable, and to make sure you have it signed up for the proper area that you're in. And I just want to take any more questions from the media for Derek, and I see CP Vancouver is up, so go ahead, Canadian Press.
Hi there. Yes, apologies if I missed this earlier, but I'm just wondering how many properties remain on evacuation order throughout the whole Columbia Shuswap district.
Ooh, that's a big number. I haven't looked at it recently, but it will be around 8,000 properties. That's a really rough number, but I'm fairly confident in that as a round number.
And just as a follow-up, if I may, I understand that active wildfire is one of the reasons why some of those folks have to remain out of their homes. But on the weekend, I heard you say, it would be a few more days until there was kind of a better timeline on the restoration of power and some of the other infrastructure related challenges that are keeping people from being able to return home. So maybe you could just offer a little bit more on that as possible.
Yeah, you bet. So danger trees are still an issue. Lots of danger tree assessments and danger tree falling going on out there to keep the road safe, make the area safe. BC Hydro, like I said, it's a massive task that they're undertaking. They're working incredibly hard. They had told us that mid this week they would have a sense of when power would be restored to certain areas, and I think they're not quite there yet to give us that timeline, but we're asking every morning. They're giving us a briefing every morning. They've been an excellent partner and a really open and transparent partner, and I know that they're doing absolutely everything they can to get the power on just as soon as they can.
Excellent. And we've got Josh Dawson up next with Castanet. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So I'm just wondering, I guess, in terms of but in terms of now that BCWS is working with locals to fight fires, is this going to change the strategy in terms of not allowing people in with food and water deliveries to those locals under evacuation order?
Oh, so the community firefighters that are working under BC Wildfire are supplied by BC Wildfire. So like Mike said the other day, they get food, gas, and water when they're engaged with those firefights. So otherwise, we're still encouraging anybody who's not engaged with BC Wildfire directly and is not in that command structure to evacuate and go to the reception center where we will give them supports.
You have a follow-up, Josh? Or are you good?
No, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. And back over to Tracy with the North Shuswap kicker.
Yeah, sorry guys. I'm getting a little bit confused about the food, gas, and water because yesterday, I think you said, Derek, they would get food, gas, and water. Today you said you weren't sure, or when I talked to you earlier, that you didn't know about why they weren't getting food. And we know that there's an issue with the gas. But then I just heard you say to Josh that they would be supplied food, gas, and water. So can you please clarify? It just seems like it's not quite clear.
Yeah, I think the clarity was where we were unclear is gas for their personal trucks. And I think what Mike was alluding to yesterday when he said food, gas, and water was that they would have all the fuel they need for their pumps and that sort of thing. So fuel for their personal trucks is problematic and it's probably not one that we can solve easily. But I think if those firefighters talk to their supervisors, that probably something can be sorted out.
Does that apply to the food portion as well then?
Oh yeah, like I said, we've been talking with Mike's colleagues about feeding of these firefighters with BC Wildfire, and all I need to know is who and when.
Okay,
So maybe
thank
I'll
you.
provide a little clarity, Tracy. So for any crew that's working for us, and I'll use myself an example. If I'm away from my home area, I'm provided a stipend or a per diem. If I'm staying in a camp, those meals are provided for me. If I'm working in my home area, they're not. If the local government is wanting to help this effort by providing our firefighters with some lunches, that's fine. That's something that they can do. It's not something we are able nor entitled to pay for because they're in their home area, frankly. It would be the same for me. If I work a fire in my hometown of Port Hardy, I have to bring my own lunch to work and I have to provide my own meals. If I'm away on travel status, those are included for me. And if I go stay in camp, that would be the case. So just maybe help to understand a little bit about the clarity around food. Again, the local government here has offered to provide them some lunches. That's fine. That's sort of outside of our purview. We're willing to facilitate that if we can. Haven't had that discussion with them yet. As far as I've been told, they're bringing their own lunches and there's been no issue.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
And Marcella, if you'd like to go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I thought I misheard something when it came to the stats that were asked about regarding how many people are under evacuation order. I thought I heard Derek say that there's about 8,000 people now in the Shuswap that are under order, but I thought there were only 6,000 across BC. So I'm just trying to get the clarity on how many people in the Shuswap are currently under evacuation orders.
You know what? Why don't I get back to you and I'll give you those stats after this briefing, because they're easy for me to pull up. I just don't have them in front of me. So I was using round numbers and maybe that was a mistake. So let me get some firm numbers for you.
I would appreciate that, yeah, because I may have just misheard what you said. So
I'd also love to receive those to our inbox if possible. I think you guys have our email.
Yeah, you betcha.
Thank you.
Yeah. I will make sure that we send that to all the media that we have on our list after this call. So excellent. Any further questions? All right. So I just wanted to add a point for the public that this is an important time of year for another group of people, and that's children that are getting ready for school. We don't have any information for you yet, but I know that the school districts are definitely ramping up and getting ready to start the year. We know it's difficult amongst everything that's going on, but one thing that it's important to try and make it as special as possible for those children of yours to get ready for school. It's an exciting time of year for them. So I hope that you can do that. If you do need help, certainly this is something where you can reach out to ESS or our information line and speak to someone if there's a challenge there, or you need to speak to someone about some part of that. So it's really important for those children to have as normal experience as possible and to really bring that excitement to them. So I'd like to thank Mike and Derek for joining us today and answering lots of questions. And a big thanks as well to the media that we work with so much every day. We do our best to get back to every call and every inquiry that we have, but you play a very important role in getting information out to a wide audience. And we really appreciate the work that all of you do. A few other things, just to repeat back a few numbers. The CSRD's EOC information line is 250-833-3350. The Emergency Support Services number is 250-833-3360. Livestock Assistance is 250-833-3399. And you can follow our website, csrd.bc.ca, as well as our Facebook and Twitter accounts to get the most up-to-date information. I'd like to thank you for joining us for the update today, and have a good rest of your day.